أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We start in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. We bear witness there is no deity worthy worship except Allah. Praise and glory be to Him. That Muhammad is a seal of messengers. He was sent as a mercy to all mankind. May peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, his family, his companions, and those who followed his path until the day of judgment. I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all, dear brothers, dear sisters, dear viewers. This is Radio Hajj Online, A2Z show, current affairs show, covering local and national, Europe and world news for the past week. And inshallah we have our guest, Brother Asad Zaman, and I hope inshallah we are well. And of course for this occasion we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Brother MTS Hussein, he had an operation, he was ill. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have some news that he is all right, he's recovering, alhamdulillah. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a quick recovery, or those who are ill as well, wherever they are. And of course, our thoughts and prayers with those who they lost 32 people who have been martyred in a train accident in Egypt when two trains crashed to each other. 32 people lost their lives, with 152 injured as well. And of course, this is not the first one. We'll be talking about it quickly as well. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless their souls, give them the highest for those in paradise, and give their parents and their relatives and their friends patience and great reward. Ameen. All right, okay, inshallah, in the local news, I think we will go for Ramadan preparation, as we are in the 3 days of the white days, Ayyamul Bid, and of course of Sha'aban. Therefore, that tell us that it's 2 weeks left to Ramadan to be. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in Sha'aban and make us to reach out Ramadan as well with the blessings and alleviating this pandemic as well. And of course, we want to talk about Ramadan and the health benefit of Ramadan. And part of it is that the Prophet said that the worse we feel is our stomach. Therefore, most of our problems come what we are eating and how our lifestyle and diet as well. And Brother Asad Zaman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. You have been, I think, having a day off this Friday. I think you listened to a Friday prayer, and we might talk about this in a few minutes. But we talk about Ramadan, part 3, health benefits. Go ahead, inshallah.
We'll be brief. I've not got the full detailed notes with me at the moment, but essentially, whenever surveys are done, in fact, research is done into the health benefits of fasting, and most of this research is done in maybe Europe or America, maybe Australia, basically in the West. And it's quite amazing that how much benefit there is from fasting, and many myths that exist tend to be shattered by the very latest information that we have. One of the main myths that I was brought up with is that when you're fasting, of course, your energy levels go down because obviously you're not feeding yourself, and therefore you should not be as active as you normally are. And therefore you should expect your energy levels to go down. Now, that would be the common sense thing. But actually, subhanallah, glory be to Allah, the reality is actually quite different. I don't remember the actual full details of the medical reasoning, the anatomical reasoning as to why this is the case, but certainly what does happen when we fast from a medical perspective is this. Our body goes into sort of lockdown because how do we survive? We survive, we exist on food. So if we don't take food in, then we're going to die, quite simply. So the body has been programmed in an amazing way by Allah. When it senses that there's no food coming in, a number of different things start happening to our bodies. So one of the things is that the body says to itself, right, I have to become extremely efficient because what I don't have any energy coming in, there's no food coming in, there are no calories coming in, so I can't change anything more into protein and energy. And so what happens is that, number one, the body says, right, whatever mechanisms there are within the body, within the liver, within the heart, within whatever part of the body, that the body starts to make it hyper efficient, starts to cleanse it. The cleansing process starts to take place within the body because it knows there's no energy coming in. So this is what you call detoxification. So the toxins, anything harmful to the body, starts to get expelled from the body.
Because after doing fast, the body is looking for food.
It's looking for food. It knows it's not got any food coming in. So whatever it has got is going to make maximum use of it. So so that's one thing, is it makes all the different organs of the body that make use of the food that comes in and energizes the body. It makes those particular organs extremely efficient. So cleanses, it's like a cleansing process. The other thing that happens is the body says, right, whatever is using up energy, I must expel it, which the body does not need. So, for example, if you have cancer cells, if you suffer from cancer, or you've got cancer cells, the body then says, you cancer cells are using up energy that I don't have now. So you are going to be deprived of energy because I don't need you to survive. You need energy from me to survive. But me, the body, does not need you cancer cells. You're using up extra energy. So, sorry, the energy going to those cancer cells starts to dry up. So there's a cutoff of energy. And the result, of course, is that they start dying naturally. So it's actually very good for your cancer. Of course, I'm not saying for a moment that whoever's got cancer should only rely on fasting and therefore should give up on chemotherapy or anything else. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that's one of the benefits of fasting, that it will help the process of eliminating and killing cancer cells. The other thing, which will be good news for you and me as we grow older, is that the body says to all the cells, for example, the cells on our hands and skin, which are dying, which are basically kind of dead cells, but they're still using up energy. It says to them, don't need you. You're using up energy, but there's no benefit to having you because you're basically dying anyway. So they start to disappear. And therefore new cells are, the new cells underneath, the more fresher ones, the youngest cells, they are seen, and therefore we actually look younger because the body starts to shed the older dead cells from our skin. The other thing that the body does, again, is right. I must be on maximum alert because I'm low on energy. I've got to be on maximum alert for any viruses, any bacteria, harm, anything that brings harm to the body. And therefore, the different aspects of our immune system, the different defense systems that Allah has created the body with, they become extremely efficient and awake, aware. And therefore, it actually sharpens up the immune system because it's not receiving any energy. So the immune system goes into maximum alert and becomes strengthened. So again, very good for the immune system, very good for protecting us from viruses and bacteria that would bring us harm. Another very good benefit is that as the stomach, now here's something interesting that I found, which you will probably find very interesting, I'm sure as well. We've actually got two brains in our bodies. Everybody knows about one of the brains, that's in our head. That's the main brain. But there is another brain that we've also got, which is actually in the gut. Brain, of course, is neurons. Yeah, neurons, that's basically your brain, the thinking part. And researchers have discovered this amazing thing that we've got about 100 billion neurons inside our brain. That's what gives us thought and creativity and the ability to think and think through and all the things that go with thinking. Yeah, we've got about 100 billion neurons, but we've also got, surprisingly, about 100 million neurons in our gut. Now, for those who don't know what the gut essentially is the beginning and the end. The whole digestive system is the gut. Okay, so that in itself actually has a brain. So what happens as we suffer from a lack of calories going into our stomach? The stomach neurons, the brain in the stomach, alerts the brain in the head, I've got no energy coming in. Right, you've got to become much more efficient to kill off whatever you don't need. So what happens? And also conserve. Oh, actually, no, let me just, let's rewind that back. What the stomach says to the brain, the stomach brain tells to the brain in the head is, I've got no energy coming in, so conserve the neurons. Don't let them die. The brain cells that contain our memories and intelligence, etc. Don't let them die until I have some more energy coming in, and then we can create more new ones. So the brain says, okay, got the message. So it conserves the brain cells, stops them from dying. What does that do to the brain? It actually delays the onset of dementia. What is dementia? What is Alzheimer's? It is, as you grow older, you start to lose your memory. What is memory? It is those brain cells that contain your memories from, 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago.
I think it's people say about 500 billion cells.
well, maybe 100 billion or whatever it is. That's the figure.
The supercomputer, you know.
Anyhow, so the brain says, right, I'm going to hang on to those neurons. I won't let them die. Those brain cells that contain memories and stuff, I won't let them die. Result is that you conserve your memories as a result of fasting. And because the body becomes much more alert, you actually get there's a release, certain hormones and stuff are released into the body that give it more energy. That's amazing. So what I started up saying is that I was brought up with certain myths that when you're fasting, you should not do any activities. Minimize your activities to a minimum to conserve your energy, which is common sense. But the body says, you don't need to reduce your energy. I'm going to inject more energy into you. So you will feel fresher, and actually you should feel stronger and fresher and more energetic when you're fasting rather than less energetic. If you feel that you need to reduce your energy consumption because you're fasting, you will actually feel a little bit tired. Psychological. But when you realize that actually the body is injecting more energy into your body because you're fasting, that should psychologically help us to be in unison with the release of energy and should make us work harder and not make us more lazy during the month of Ramadan. That's just absolutely amazing. And one can go on and on about the different health benefits of fasting. I don't have I've actually made some notes somewhere. I didn't realize we were going to discuss this in detail. Otherwise, I would have gone into some amazing stuff. You carry on talking, and I will see if I can just on my mobile locate some of those notes, which you're going to find very, very interesting. Just leave me a moment. You just do that.
MashaAllah. Okay. I think let's go back. Right. We were talking about the fasting and the benefit of fasting. One of the things which is more important than anything else, Ramadan is a time for change and time for rehabilitation as well. And in Ramadan, usually in Muslim countries, a lot of people try to give up bad habits, smoking, if they, drinking alcohol, gambling, all these kind of things can be done in Ramadan, because the psychologists say that a change, if you want to change a bad habit to a good habit, you have to put a routine for between 21 to 40 days. And this is a very important aspect of fasting, is to, in fact, change. And that is where Ramadan is about reform and rehabilitation. And if you want to give up something, you have to do it again and again for 21 days to 40 days. Now, surprisingly, when rehabilitation people who are a problem with drinking alcohol or addiction to drugs, the rehabilitation center, when they give advice, they tell them, surprisingly, you do it for a higher being. Who is this higher being? Question is, and in UK, I think alcohol, the government get about 3 billion tax income from it, but they spend between 12 to 41 billion of these as consequences of alcohol with domestic violence, and all illnesses as well are due to alcohol as well. And we have seen the pandemic, when they opened the pubs, a pandemic start increasing as well, infections start increase as well. So therefore, Ramadan, because you give up food and drink and everything between dawn to sunset, therefore, like today in the 27th of March is almost from 4:30 or 4:20 minutes, 4:20 in the morning to around 6:39, 6:40 p.m. And of course, the health benefit, anything you do for 16 hours repeatedly, that where your body start looking for food and it get all rid of all the dead tissues who cause dementia and Alzheimer disease, and
By the
any
way,
excess of fat
Abdul
is
Aziz, I've got
actually
the
taken out
notes
by.
now.
You have got
Yeah,
the notes, okay.
I've got the
So I
notes
just
now.
talk about this 16 hours fast or so, and how it affects the body by taking all the dead tissue and the fat as well. And you don't never in fast, you enter in the mode of starvation. But before the dawn, we have a pre-dawn meal when you can get dates and of course water, and you can eat hydrocarbon, and then you can keep your fast 3 days.
Okay.
The body adjusts to the new routine as well. And Ramadan is 29 to 30 days. And the psychologist said, if you want to change, you need 21 to 40 days. The Ramadan is a nice balance, 29 to 30 days. Okay, let's go back to Brother Asad Zaman, and I hope he got his notes for health
I have,
benefit of Ramadan.
and it's just quite amazing. And this is actually not
Right.
even from a Muslim. This is from non-Muslims, and this
I
is
think
actually
you
not
have
even
put,
talking about Ramadan. It's talking about intermittent fasting, which is of course every Monday and Thursday, which is the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ.
yes, that's
So
2 plus 5. 2 plus 5. Can you put your video on, please?
and at the moment you will not be able to see me.
All right.
So
Okay.
yeah, okay. So I'm reading the notes of
Okay.
the
Go on.
mobile. Right. So the effects of
Okay.
intermittent fasting on the body and the brain that may thwart obesity and chronic diseases. So what is the impact on the blood? Well, you have decreased insulin, which is IGF-1, and leptin, increased ketones, which are good, adiponectin and ghrelin. Doctors who might be listening would certainly make a lot of sense to them. In terms of the liver, you have increased insulin sensitivity, ketone body production, and decreased IGF-1 levels. In the intestines, and this is where the energy levels I was talking about, you have reduced energy uptake. That's interesting. And then you have reduced inflammation, and it reduces cell proliferation as well. All of those good for obviously giving you energy. Now, in terms of the brain, improved cognitive function. So you actually become smarter. Increased neurotrophic factors. Increased, now this is interesting, increased stress resistance, and also reduced inflammation. Now, in terms of the heart, reduced resting heart rate, reduced blood pressure, and you have an increase in stress resistance as well within the heart. So, and of course, stress is a major factor for a lot of people's problems, health and others. So both within the brain and the heart, you have reduced stress, you have increased stress resistance. Within the fat cells, you have lipolysis, you have reduced leptin, increased adiponectin, and reduced inflammation. Now, again, this is really interesting. In the muscles, this is the energy thing we were talking about. You have increased insulin sensitivity, you have increased efficiency, and you have reduced inflammation. Again, making you much more active and energetic. Now, I think a couple of years ago, in 2019, this study was published in the journal PLOS One. Now, 500 participants who had certain special conditions, they were studied, and the impact of fasting on them was looked at. So, what did they find? Number one, who were the type of people? They had metabolic disorders like obesity, type 2 diabetes, mellitus, and various other hyper issues. The second category of people that were looked at, and it was looked at in terms of the impact of fasting on them, were people who had chronic inflammatory and degenerative diseases like arthritis, fibromyalgia, gastritic allergies, neurodermatitis, so skin issues, etc. The third category were people who had mental and physical exhaustion, like depression, chronic fatigue, burnout. You and me know about that, Abdul Aziz.
Mhm.
Now, 85% are documented to have had a huge improvement during their fast. Imagine that, 85%. And 93% of people didn't even feel the hunger during the fasting. Also, there was reduction of inflammation. So what actually happened with those people? So you had the benefits were reduction of inflammation, modulation of blood parameters, increase of ketone points in the body, normalization of various kind of read some of this stuff. I wrote it actually on my board, and my handwriting should be visible to me. But anyway, normalization of glycemia, I think it is, and normalization of blood pressure. So that's one of the things. Also, control of diabetes, weight control, dementia, and memory life. Their memories became better. Of course, the weight control comes from the fact that you don't overeat from at the start and finish. It's very important, and we can discuss that perhaps some other time. Also, the length of life actually it became better, because obviously if you're suffering from fewer diseases, your life will become longer. The immune system improved in these people. Their energy levels improved. The bad cells like cancer, they were removed. And your skin, then they found that they started to look younger. And also, basically, it was a total detoxification of the body, and it became much, much healthier. So all of these are the result, and these are documented. These are non-Muslim researchers who did this, and as I said, it was published in 2019. It's only a couple of years ago. So, and it was by some Germans, I think, Buschinger and Wilhelm. You can see this study in Buchinger Wilhelm WILHELMI.com/science. If you go onto that website, you will see the details of this particular study. So yes, it's just absolutely amazing the benefits of fasting, as I've just mentioned.
Right, and of course, this this month is coming. The month of Ramadan, inshallah, God willing, will be on the 30th, starting from 13th of April. Therefore, we are almost the countdown have started as well. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to fast more in this month of Sha'ban, in March, more corresponding to March, but it is Sha'ban, it's the month in Islamic calendar. And therefore he fasted more than any other months as well, as you said, Mondays and Thursdays. And
Yeah.
of course, he increased his fasting rate. I think the best person who has fasted ever is King David, Dawood alayhi salam. He used to fast one day and break the other. And therefore,
You know, I've got, yes, absolutely. What you're saying is totally right. But there's something else as well. It's not necessarily a physical health benefit, but something else that we just don't talk about. And maybe we could mention this again in much more detail. What else do we develop in fast when we are fasting? We develop something pretty amazing. You see, fasting, of course, creates a lot of patience inside you, doesn't it? There you are, you're starving, you know, at your normal lunchtime, about 12, 1 o'clock, your stomach's saying, feed me. And you're saying, not until sunset. Yeah.
You are in control. You are in control.
You're saying, no way, I'm not going to feed you. I'm sorry, mate. You're going to be fed at sunset and not 1 second before that. And so what happens? You develop patience. Yeah. Now, this patience thing has been looked at with a lot of detail by psychologists. Okay. And there was a very famous marshmallow experiment regarding the importance of patience, to demonstrate the importance of patience. And of course, the other thing, of course, in terms of patience is, as we know, the Prophet ﷺ has told us that if we experience, if we're getting into an argument with someone and we know that this discussion is heading in the wrong direction, then the best thing to say is, I'm fasting, and that's it. Move away, back off. Do not continue the conversation. That again helps us to really control our emotions. But in terms of patience, as I said, there was a very famous experiment that was done about 50, 60 years ago, called the marshmallow experiment. And this was done with hundreds of children, and they got the same results every time they tried this. So they would get a group of children together, yeah, and they would say to them, okay, here's a marshmallow, and children love marshmallows, but here it is. If you eat this now, you only get one marshmallow, but I'm going to go away for a couple of minutes, and when I return, if you haven't eaten this one, I'm going to give you 2. Okay? So either you can eat this one now or resist eating it until I come back in a few minutes, and then I will give you 2. Now, he followed up on, now these people, then he made a note of who couldn't wait. They said, forget this 2 one, we want this one, yeah? And then he made a note of those who did wait, who didn't eat that and then waited, and they got 2. So he followed up on their progress for maybe 30, 40, 50 years. Yeah. How do these people, live their lives? How does this aspect of patience impact them, those who had patience and those who lacked patience, who did not want to wait for the second marshmallow. And he found some amazing results. Those who waited, those who had the patience, yeah, those who didn't eat the one marshmallow straight away, but waited for the second one, for the two. He noticed, generally speaking, they were much more successful in life. They had higher grades in their exams. They were more likely to leave school with better qualifications. They had generally happier marriages. Generally, they had lower divorce rates. And generally, they had lower obesity rates as well, seriously overweight, very low. Also, when they had CT scans or MRI scans on their brains, they noticed something, that there was more activity in the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain, which is associated with thinking, reasoning, emotional control, basically what are referred to as executive functions. Yeah, there was more activity in that area with those people who waited. Those who didn't, those who could not wait for the second marshmallow, they just wanted that whatever was put in front of them, they just grabbed it. They didn't have self-control, those children. They had many more problems. They had health problems. They were eating unhealthy foods. They didn't want to do exercise. They had more addictions like internet addiction, alcohol, smoking, etc. Also, in terms of their controlling of their finances, they ended up spending more money than they were making and getting themselves into debt and what have you. Also, interestingly, in terms of their sexual desires, they had, they had less control over them as well. And they had more difficulty in controlling their anger. And there were more of them who were later convicted of murder as well. Also, the main reason, tends to be the main reason for violent criminals. Their behavior is the result of poor self-control. And they tend to be more aggressive as well. Again, lacking patience. They were more aggressive, and their brain was 20 to 30% calories intake more, because, or perhaps less, because if you're hungry, you tend to be angry more as well, and so you have less control.
We have spoke, I think, plenty of in Ramadan. We have more time, I think, next week.
Yeah, I just came to the end of that, but that was, pretty amazing stuff. That the more we look into the benefits of fasting, the more benefit. I mean, we're just amazed. And this research is being done by non-Muslims. So they're telling us what a wonderful faith we have.
May Allah make it easy, inshallah. That is very beautiful, and I hope, inshallah, people will benefit from it, especially for reforming and for rehabilitation. Ramadan fasting is the best way to go forward and change your life forever, given smoking and alcohol and all this, because alcohol is a toxin to the heart, and the first killer in the world is actually the problem with the heart and cardiovascular problems. Those are actually the first in the world as well. Now, when it's
I was just going to say, we won't discuss this now because we've got plenty of other things to discuss. But just to remember, we Muslims have a beautiful faith, but we've got terrible habits. And those things we need to look at as to why it is that we've got this amazing religion, but why is it that Muslims, certainly in the UK, and probably elsewhere as well, are the unhealthiest religious group in the country?
Because I think in Ramadan, they stuff themselves with food, they give up, and then all the benefit is gone at iftar time.
We will discuss this in detail
All right.
in the future.
I think quickly, I think about COVID-19 jab during Ramadan, if I'm fasting and I will get a vaccination, does it break my fast? Question.
Well, the general opinion is, I mean, you will always have, some ulama, some scholars who will disagree. But the general opinion is, what is the purpose? Why is there even a question on this? Because there's something is entering our body. And we know that, we apart from air, nothing should enter our body. But of course, the point is, if it's liquid or whatever, is it nourishing us? Is it helping us to reduce the impact of the fast on our bodies? And if there is no nourishment coming from the injection, then of course there should be no impact on the body in terms of the injection. It's not like having a glucose tube. You're being fed through a glucose tube, or being fed through right into your intestines or whatever, if you can't swallow. It's not the same as that.
Yes, because the purpose of vaccine is not feeding, is actually to fight and is antibacterial, antivirus and everything. Therefore,
what's protecting you is,
they agree. I think the majority.
The vaccine is to protect you and not to nourish you.
Yes, so, and the European Council for Research allowed actually, he made an Islamic opinion that the vaccine is allowed because it's not for nourishment, but actually protection for people, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, it is allowed as well, and it doesn't break your fast. Regarding COVID-19 as well, the COVID-19, I think I have some statistic. And I just want you to just make some comments about traveling and the fine they are putting and the COVID-19 passport.
Well, look, the COVID-19 passport is going to become standard pretty much in the next few months. Why? I mean, the government is not going to force it on us. This is not the British way of doing things, okay? Maybe in some Arab countries or African countries or other, dictatorships or whatever, they'd say, right, you got to have it. That's it, whether you like it or not. And that's not the way the British do things. They also do the same thing, but they do it in a more smarter way, right? They don't impose it directly. They do it indirectly. So what's going to happen is that every indoor place, whether it's your work or whether it's a shop or restaurant or whatever, or inside an airplane, if it's indoors anywhere, the people who own the premises, they will say to you, if you've not had the jab, you can't enter. So even those people who are completely against the jab, if they want to go abroad, if they want to go into a restaurant, if they want to go into a supermarket or mall or somewhere, if they want to go to work and it's not at home, it's some premises, they've got no choice. They've got absolutely no choice, even if you don't want it. For the sake of being able to live your life, you're going to have it. So the government isn't going to say, if you don't have it, you're going to go to prison. No, the government will say, look, it's entirely up to you. It's voluntary. But your circumstances are going to force you to have it. So that's the reality. That's where we're going.
So therefore, the idea is because the problem is with the infection and this the variant of the virus as well. Now, as you, I think the Europe is on lockdown again because of the increase in the of the number of infected people. And of course, traveling, that's the problem. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, spoke about quarantine as well, that people, if they are staying in one place, if there is a pandemic, they should not get out. And,
exactly.
Yes.
Don't enter a plagued area. Don't leave a plagued area.
And
simple.
That's a very, very important as well. Of course, the COVID-19, when we talk about it, is worldwide and everything. Therefore, this is some of the, I can give you this actually from last week, how the things gone. I mean, in UK, the total infection was almost 4,307,304. The estimated R was 0.6 to 0.9, and it went down a little bit on the 19th of March. Of course, the total death was 126,284 just last week. The vaccination went up, and I believe is better now this week as well. Is about 30 million people have the first dose, and the second total is about 53.8%. And those who have got the second dose, almost 2.3 million, 4.5% of the population. Worldwide, the total case was 120 million, 124,905.
You know what, Abdul Aziz, you're going to confuse people with stats. People don't like stats.
Anyway, and vaccination was last week 320 million people vaccinated, and there's almost 2 million.
Britain is one of the best countries to be living in if you want to be vaccinated.
And the worst, I think, and the worst is America.
Well, again, the bigger the population, the more difficult it is for you.
There's 500,000 people have actually been passed away because of the pandemic. Okay, now national, there was a bigger row and the big shouting in the parliament as well, about 10.5 billion distributed out by the UK government during pandemic behind closed doors for PPE, that's the masks and aprons and all kind of protection gloves as well. And what's your thought about this?
Look, the Conservative Party is well known to be the party of business people, okay, of the rich. And so, of course, there will be politicians in the Conservative Party who will have some link, with the provision of PPE, whether it's masks or some other part, some other aspect. And there'll be importers, exporters, and what have you within them, because it is the party of the business people.
Mm.
So, they've got, if you've got access to information, inside information, and you, the government, are going to be doing a lot of purchasing and stuff, then what the excuse that the government used, and it is when this was pointed out many months ago, was that we were panicking. We were just, we try to get hold of whatever we could. Remember, there was all that hoo-ha about the big consignment from Turkey as well, and all that. So they were saying, we were panicking, and therefore we really had to provide the National Health Service and all the other people around with masks and all the other protection. And so we just went to whoever we were familiar with. And They just happen to be in the Conservative Party or connected with the Conservative Party in some way. And so the millions and hundreds of millions of pounds of contracts went to them because they were able to provide this protection stuff, very quickly. So that's their excuse. The point is, if they've got information that will help them to make a few 100 million, then it's going to be difficult for them to resist it. It's down to the laws of the land to make sure that people don't abuse the information that they've got.
But as you said, those set up their own companies. They are insiders. They know what is going on in the government inside, in the indoors, and therefore, are they sponsor of the Conservative Party?
Well, I haven't gone into the full details, but what I did hear,
Conflict of interest.
Of course, there would be a massive conflict of interest, and there should be a public inquiry into these massive big orders, and if they went to donors of the Conservative Party, then obviously, you can imagine the kind of written or unwritten agreement. We'll give you this 200 million pound, 500 million pound order, but we do expect something back in return as well. So you can expect that kind of trade-off and deal when the person receiving it is going to be obviously benefiting by hundreds of millions of pounds.
All right. I think let's move on to the next item. Batley Grammar School, protest of the parents and the pupils regarding the the teacher showing the Prophet, peace be upon him, in very bad manners. I'm just a little bit even I cannot see whatever he was trying to teach the kids about it. Is about freedom of speech and all this tolerance, all this kind of things. Is it part of the citizenship curricula? We have the British values: democracy, respect of the law, respect of individual freedom of liberties, and of course tolerance towards those who have other faith, other opinions as well. So therefore, what is your intake on this?
Akhi Abdul Aziz, there is a battle going on. We are in an ideological war here. We want to live in this country with our values and our beliefs. And there are things we hold very sacred, very dear to us. We've got red lines. And for example, just typically, don't make jokes about God, Allah, about his angels, his prophets, his books. Yeah, that's our red line. But that red line doesn't exist within a secular liberal framework. That's our red line. But within a secular liberal framework, they also do have red lines, and they acknowledge those red lines, that you just don't cross into that because it is unacceptable, right? It goes against human decency and all the rest of it. So for example, because this thing about absolute freedom of speech is complete rubbish. There is no absolute freedom of speech in any country of the world, whether it's a democracy or a dictatorship. Doesn't matter. You cannot have absolute freedom of speech. You are going to head towards anarchy, total breakdown of law and order. So in the West, and I've been on television, on the big questions on the BBC, saying this, that I can't imagine, even though maybe I have the right to, but I wonder if I do have the right to, yeah? If I wanted to make a joke about slavery, would I really do it? Would I make a joke about slavery and the hell that black people and African people went through during the slave trade that the US and Britain and other countries were guilty of? Would I make a joke about that, knowing full well that any black person, anyone of African origin, would be deeply offended by that? Would I make a joke about the Holocaust, about the suffering of the Jews under Hitler, under the Nazis? We are told about 6 million died. Would I make a joke about the Holocaust? I wouldn't. I just would not, because it would be deeply, deeply offensive to all Jewish people, and of course others as well, because of what they suffered. So those are red lines. But of course, those are red lines that I would put there for my own sort of, I would censor my own freedom of speech. Even if it was allowed under the law, I would not do it. Why would I want to deliberately hurt the feelings of Jewish people or of black people? What, just to get a laugh or to prove a point that, look, I have the right to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't care if I hurt you. What kind of human being would I be with that kind of attitude? Utterly barbaric, utterly uncivilized. But the law has got its red lines. You cannot say anything anti-Jewish. It's called anti-Semitism. So what happened to the freedom of speech there then? It's freedom of speech, except you can't say this. What about saying something about minorities? That would be racism.
And what about Islamophobia, Islamophobia?
Exactly. Well, this is it. So the system, the secular liberal system, acknowledges these red lines of homophobia, saying something bad about homosexuals, about anti-Semitism, saying bad things about Jews, and of course racism, saying bad things about non-white people generally, or about any particular race. So those red lines are there. There are laws to protect people who fall inside these categories. So there is no such thing as absolute freedom of speech. So then you say, well, what is all this fuss about? Yes, you just said it. We need to have very clear laws relating to Islamophobia. And those laws, to some extent, are there. For example, the whole area of hate speech. Now, religion is covered by that, because if you're going to say something that you know is hateful, will generate a lot of anger within a certain minority, etc., and would maybe provoke others to attack that minority, that it goes against the rules of civility as well, of being civilized. Because you've got to ask yourself, they keep hiding behind this freedom of speech thing, except when it comes to racism and comes to homophobia, comes to anti-Semitism. Then suddenly what happens to the freedom of speech? Oh no, those are, by law they're protected. Why are they protected by law if there's absolute freedom of speech? Either there is no freedom of speech, or there is total, complete freedom of speech. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So either you can't pick and choose what bits of freedom of speech you're going to allow. So what else is going on there? So this teacher, who I'm sure has already read about what happened in France with this guy, Patty, the teacher who showed those Charlie Hebdo nasty, horrible caricatures, which were supposed to be of the Prophet ﷺ. One of them, I know you said you didn't want to say it, but we need to, in fact, if people are wondering what we're talking about, there's a cartoon which they say represents the Prophet ﷺ wearing a turban and a bomb in it, quite simply. I mean, what sane person would present that cartoon in front of mostly Muslim children in a classroom and say, I'm showing you this to show you I have freedom of speech or freedom of expression to display this? I mean, why did you, forgive me for saying this, why did you show a naked picture of your mother to them and say, look, I have freedom of speech and expression. I can show you the naked picture of my mother or my sister or my wife to you. That's me expressing my freedom of speech.
But we have a principle in Islam that you don't, if somebody do some bad things, you don't actually combat it with something worse or the same as bad.
No, I'm not saying we're not talking about us. I'm saying if he wanted to demonstrate the principle of freedom of speech, he could have done that if he wanted to. But no, what does he do? He picks the most offensive picture that a Muslim could be confronted by and says, have a look at this and don't be offended by it.
Therefore, are you saying that the teacher is, because we will talk about it then, this complaint, Harry Meghan breakfast show on ITV received more than 41,000 complaints, causing the firing of the presenter and Ofcom investigation. And the use of an emotive picture or emotive comments by the teacher as well can cause a lot of offenses. Do you think that, because talking about things is something, but if we start learning that we should make complaint written to anything we see wrong, it's like you do a petition or something like this and you get more than 100,000 in the parliament, this issue will be discussed in the parliament and you can reverse decision. Do you think Muslims or citizens of this country, like, this Meghan breakfast show, almost 41,000 complain. So therefore, because when you complain in written form, it becomes a legal document. And Ofcom has, do you think that?
The point, no, just 1 second. What is it? You're comparing two things, you're completely different here.
Yeah, but I compared what happened in that breakfast show.
No, breakfast show is on air.
Yes.
It's on air. It's not
Yes.
part of a RE course within a school.
Yes.
Two completely different things. So, and then, if it's a BBC, then we are paying for it. If it isn't, then obviously advertisers are paying for it. So it depends on the context of it.
But I'm looking at the complaint, complaining in written form.
Look, that teacher knew exactly what he was doing. There's no question about it. It's like putting a knife deep into the heart of someone and saying, oh, I didn't know that would hurt you. No, a knife in my heart would definitely hurt me. And you knew that that's a knife in my heart. Okay. There's no point pretending in saying that, you were ignorant of the consequences. No, you knew exactly what you were doing, right? You were not brought up or born in a cave. You know what happened in France. You know what's been happening around the world with the cartoon issue, the Charlie Hebdo, I think 12 people were killed, etc. There were all these terrorist attacks. You know this is a highly emotive issue. You know it. So why do you deliberately do it? Because, you see, if your attitude is my values are superior to the values of these children, and I'm going to impose my values on them. And just as I don't see anything as sacred, I don't want them to see anything as sacred. That is what's going on here. The system and those who represent the system see us as having inferior values. and they are trying to impose their so-called superior values upon us. And we're supposed to just say, okay, yes, right, your values are superior to ours, and therefore we are going to say nothing. It doesn't work like that. And therefore you have to stand up for your values and for your rights as a citizen, and use the law in order to protect you. And if the law isn't there to protect you, then you use all the democratic tools which are available to bring about a positive change within the law. That's what democracy is about.
Okay, and therefore, you know what happened? Okay, the school apologized and suspended the teacher pending an investigation. Therefore, we have a complaint procedure. Every school has a complaint procedure. You have to go. The parents went for a protest. Do you think that once the actual investigation comes out, the next one, can they sue the school in the court for defamation?
If the school was aware of it, and the school head teacher, for example, gave the go-ahead for using that material within that lesson, then I suppose the school can be sued. But if the school says, I'm sorry, we had no idea this teacher was going to be showing this material, then of course it is a matter for the teacher. The teacher can be sued for deliberately provoking students and offending his own students. Look, a teacher is supposed to be a role model. Okay, what kind of role model are you, for God's sake, that you deliberately offend? You know what you're about to show will offend the children, a large proportion of the children in front of you, and you're telling them, don't be offended. No, I'm sorry, we are going to be offended. Don't you dare tell us not to be offended. Who are you to tell us that we shouldn't be offended when you show us something offensive? No, this is really what this is about. So let's hope that the school has learned. Perhaps the teacher should be sent on a compulsory Islamic studies, one year course or something to help him understand Islam from the inside. Maybe he should be forced to go and live in some Muslim country and enroll on a basics of Islam course and a seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Maybe that would be the best thing for him, rather than being just expelled from the school. But definitely something should be done.
And I have no problem, because I think we don't know who is that teacher, how long has he been teaching. I think as anybody else, a teacher is not an angel. We can make mistakes and commit things, but I believe that any teachers of anywhere, if they do this kind of things in the system, in the schools, they have the system by which you can suspend. Again, I think you can train. I think he should learn, I think, from his mistake, and then an inset regarding this kind of emotive pictures and speeches, and respecting the emotions and these feelings of other people, other faiths as well, is part and parcel of the citizen British values, is to tolerance in being always respectful to other people's feelings and emotive. And of course, religion is very emotional as well. So therefore, those religious beliefs as well should be protected wherever it is. And therefore, people who try to mess about with that should actually be followed, but complain. And the parents should be always aware what is going on in their schools, and you follow the complaint procedure to get things right, isn't it?
Yes, and I think we should both emphasize that the physical threats that were made to the teacher were totally unacceptable and totally un-Islamic. because the teacher had to go into hiding or whatever. That is something that we can never accept. Yes, we are angry about what he showed the children, but physically threatening him and his life, etc., or his wife and children, family, that is just way too far and totally unacceptable.
Okay, let's move on, inshallah. This, I think Europe, France ban of halal poultry, chicken as well, and this is an ongoing as well. I don't know what they are trying to do, and being on the extreme right regarding extreme secular to that extent, even they want to push people to eat, like the Chinese are pushing Muslims, Uyghurs to eat pork.
Look, 10% of the population of France is Muslim. That's 1 in 10 is Muslim. And the French, I suppose they're afraid of losing their secular culture, the laissez-faire. And Macron is in serious there's a serious threat of him losing the election. And the far right, Marine Le Pen, has a chance of winning. And so the French, he's doing what Sarkozy did, what Mitterrand and the others did, is tell the right and far right voters who are, increasing, look, you don't have to vote for Marine Le Pen. We are just as nasty towards Muslims, yes, and we're going to be even more. How nasty we are. So you should vote for us. If it's anti-Islam that you want, that you're happy with, then we will give you as much anti-Islam as you like. And look, these 6 million Muslims, we're going to ban them from eating halal, or at least not to slaughter it here. Of course, the same thing would have to apply to the Jews with their kosher. But I don't know how many Jews that would affect. Of course, they can always import it. I don't think there'll be a ban on importing halal food, but they certainly would. They're thinking of banning it. And of course, once they ban halal slaughter, then they will have the same arguments about human rights and this, that, the other, to ban circumcision, and for boys. And again, that'll affect Muslims and Jews. And then you can see them banning, and they've already banned, you can wear a long skirt in France, but so long as it's nothing to do with religion. Wow. I mean, what a crazy backward law is that?
And the hijab as well was banned as well, yeah?
Yeah, hijab, nikah. So what they're doing is making it more and more difficult for Muslims to practice their religion. And so what the French system is saying, you Muslims, do as the French do. As the saying, do as the Romans do, yeah? In Rome, do as the Romans do. In France, do as the French do. That means you eat like us, you live like us, you dress like us, you have beliefs like us. That's the only way we're going to fully accept you. Okay. Otherwise, bye-bye.
Right. Okay, I think let's move on to reconciliation in Yemen and this Turkey rapprochement with Saudi Arabia. And they have launched now Stop the War, and they are asking for reconciliation. Do you think that if this reconciliation negotiation with the Houthis in Yemen doesn't happen, maybe there will be involvement of arms from Turkey, the drones, everything?
The Houthis have proven themselves to be very, very effective. You've got the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Americans and the British helping them in Yemen. And they're about 1/3 of the Yemeni population, I understand. And
not 1/3, I mean, it's about 10%, not a third, no.
I don't know, I read that somewhere.
No.
They have proven themselves to be very, very stubborn and resilient. Of course, there's plenty of help coming from Iran. Where do the Houthis get all their drones and stuff from?
Yeah.
And it's been draining the Saudis. They're, you know, MBS has proven itself to be a very, very poor leader, and so is MBZ of the UAE. And it doesn't surprise me they want to stop the war because it's very, very expensive. All their oil wealth is going towards this totally, you know, unwinnable war. It seems the Saudi troops are not. It seems to me they're pretty useless. The UAE troops and the Saudi troops, or they don't even send them in. Okay, if you want to finish this thing, go and send 100,000 Saudi troops into there and finish the job off. And okay, you know, 10,000 Saudis will die, but at least you bring an end to the war. You can't just win a war by bombing, you know, civilians and anybody else, you know, who they are killing. And it's one of the poorest countries in the world, for God's sake. And what we are seeing is the possibility of mass starvation. So it's a crazy war. It's an insane war. It needs to come to an end. They need to sit down and negotiate, give the Houthis power as well, and let them run Yemen. And you know, many of the Houthis are Zaydis, and Zaydis and Sunnis are really not very far apart
Very
in
close,
terms of their faith.
Yeah, you are right. And I think proportional representation can solve the problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the only way forward. It's very clear the Houthis are not going anywhere. Therefore, you know, $500 billion NEOM 2030 project, you know, to be successful, then where's he going to get the money from if he's of all of Saudi oil money, which has gone down enormously because of the low oil value, oil price? They must be economically in serious trouble, and that's why they want to stop. And that's why they made friends back again with Qatar in a humiliating manner. They tried to destroy Qatar, and they failed miserably. And now suddenly Qatar is back, and because Qatar had very close ties with Turkey, and because Turkey has proven itself, especially in terms of its drone technology, to be very, very effective. They proved it in Libya by defeating, or more or less defeating, Haftar. They proved it, who was of course being supported by the Saudis. They proved it in Syria, and you know, against the Russians. And they proved it in Nagorno-Karabakh, which is, of course, part of Azerbaijan in the war with Armenia. And so, because they've proven themselves very, very effective, and of course, drones are very, very cheap. You know, we're talking about a few million each at most, just literally a few million each. And Turks are producing them, selling at a very cheap price, I think 2-3 million or something. Compare that to, I don't know, F-35 or F-16, which is about, I don't know, 60 million or something. I mean, you could buy 30 drones for the same price of one, you know, F-16 or something like that.
Okay, I think we follow that case, inshallah, in the future. Hopefully, inshallah, in Ramadan is coming. And it is a time where we should have that this reconciliation going on and coming to, like in Libya now, there is some reconciliation, the unity government was set up to organize elections of parliament and president and everything. Now,
you see, look, reconciliation comes when one party absolutely realizes that they are receiving a huge amount of punishment and they cannot win. And if they carry on, they're going to lose a lot more. That's when they say, okay, fine, let's start talking peace. Until that situation arises in Yemen, now either the Saudis or the Houthis, backed by Iran, they come to the conclusion, we can't win. Like
Okay.
like the Americans in Vietnam. Why did they pull out of Vietnam? They lost in Vietnam. They realized they can't win. Why did the Russians pull out of Afghanistan? Because they realized, in spite of all their massive firepower and bombs and everything, they can't win. Why are the Americans begging to leave Afghanistan now? Because they realize, in spite of all their technology and bombs and everything, they cannot win in Afghanistan. That's why they're pulling out.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
And I believe at the end of the day, like the Prophet has said as well, support your brother, whether he's oppressing or oppressed. The companion said, okay, we know if he's oppressed, we can support him. But they said, how can we support him when he's oppressing? He said, stop him from oppressing other people. So therefore, the idea is to establish justice. I believe it's why the motto, no justice, no peace. It is actually a global motto. Therefore, bringing social justice and stopping oppression as well will bring peace everywhere in the world. And the money we are spending on arms and arm trade and arm race, and of course, we are moving this. This can be spent on development of those countries who are underdeveloped. And as you said, starvation is actually threatening 20 million Yemenis in this kind of conflict. Let's move to Pakistan, India, a relationship. Modi desire cordial relationship, two nuclear powers. It was actually due on the 20th of March 1940, you know, that occasion as well. What do you think of prospect? But Kashmir is still a very, very hot issue.
Look, long term, over the next maybe 30, 40 years, the projection is that India will be the most powerful country in the world. They will overtake China because the Chinese population is going to start falling because their birth rate is now well below replacement. Replacement is 2.1 children per family. China is now about 1.6 children per family. So it's well below. Their population is falling. And that has an enormous impact on the economy and the armed forces and everything else. And innovation and whatever. The Indian birth rate is about 2.1, 2.2, which is replacement. So whereas the Indian birth rate is going to will be going up a little bit, the Chinese birth rate is going to go down. And with it, this will have an economic impact as well. So as these changes occur, you will see, at least that's the projection, that India is heading towards superpower status. So what Modi wants to do is remove any obstacles that could stop India from progressing. At the moment, the situation is not so cool in terms of the economy. So he wants to create a situation where, he's not constantly, if there's going to be this arms race, there's been this arms race between India and Pakistan ever since the creation of Pakistan, okay? Ever since Pakistan broke away from India, 1947 or whatever, yeah? Arms are expensive, and nuclear arms, Pakistan has gotten more nuclear bombs now than India has, but they're expensive. They're not cheap. I think Pakistan's got about 160 odd, and India's got about 150 odd, or something like that. Nuclear bombs, and they will continue, this arms race until they come to a realization that we're never going to use these arms. We're next door to each other, and the fallout would destroy both the countries anyway. So the best thing, and then there's a problem of water. And if there's no cooperation, there's going to be war over water. And India is a very, very, I mean, the poor are very poor. You've got about 400 million who are middle class in India, which is a huge population. And they're the ones who've been driving the economy. But there is a huge number who are very, very poor. If for India to get out of this poverty and get everyone above the poverty line, they're going to have to spend a huge amount on the people. And that means, you know, having peace with your neighbors is far, far more preferential than being constantly at war. So you ask about Kashmir, is there going to be any resolution? The only resolution there can be is to let the people of Kashmir decide their own future.
Therefore, self-determination referendum. But always, you know, self-determination. Why don't Kashmir become a buffer zone between the two, and it declares its own state between India and Pakistan? Therefore, it doesn't belong to India. It doesn't belong to Pakistan.
Like Switzerland, like, you know, totally
Yes.
neutral, basically.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, that's the situation of Switzerland, and that's why Switzerland didn't get destroyed in World War II, because
Yes.
it didn't take anybody's side,
Yes.
because it couldn't afford to.
Yes. Therefore,
So,
they give them three choices: stay with India, or
okay.
Pakistan, or self state. You know, self.
And in 1947, I think it was, when the partition happened, that is exactly what was passed in the United Nations, that the Indian, the Kashmiri people would be given what is referred to as a plebiscite.
Yes.
Okay, a plebiscite is self-determination of
Self-rule.
their political status.
Uh-huh.
Referendum tends to be about one item or another, but a plebiscite is what political future status you know, do we want to have? And that is there with the UN resolution. India refuses to implement it because they know the majority of Kashmiris are Muslims, and they will want either independence or they will want to be with Pakistan. They will not want to be with India. That's why the Indian government won't hold it.
Okay, I think we are moving. I think we have to finish now. China sanctions against UK individuals.
9 politicians, yes.
And therefore, of course, the speech of the Chinese representative spoke about Algeria and what France has done there. But
what the West has done, who are there to tell us, you know, about human rights? This is what the Chinese are saying. You people in the West, you the British, look at the massacres you caused in the colonial period, and you the French, look at the massacres you did in your colonies, and etc. So who are you to tell us? In English, we have an expression. It's the is it the pot calling the kettle black? Okay, it's you've got a nasty history, and you're telling us. Who the hell are you to tell us? So that's what the Chinese are saying. But the reality is, look, the war is on. The aim is to destroy the Chinese economy, and they will, you know, they were stupid enough to help China get to this level of prosperity. They should have known that one day, you know, with a different system, that this was going to happen. But you know what? The West thought that if we encourage China and they become rich and they become more capitalist, but of course the economic, you know, their businesses are run on capitalism, but they were hoping that there would be a huge movement within China to force the Chinese Communist Party to collapse, just as the Russian Communist Party collapsed. That was the hope of the West. That's why they pumped a huge amount of finance in China, to capitalize it, make people rich, and then for the people to rise up and get rid of the Communist Party. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. They did become capitalists. They became very, very, very rich. China became the factory of the world, but the Chinese political system remained very, very communist and atheist. So now they're saying, well, okay, that didn't work. Now we've created a monster. We've created a monster. Now we have to destroy this monster. You know, it's literally Frankenstein's monster that the West has created in terms of China from a Western perspective. And now the Chinese, they are very, very powerful and way ahead, you know, technologically and what have you. Look at Shenzhen and all these other places, yeah? And the result now is that the West don't know what to do. You know, they're holding sanctions and this and that, and they're using the excuse of the Uyghurs. What does the West care about the Uyghurs? Look at the Uyghurs are Muslims, and look at what the French are doing to the Muslims in France. And look at what you know, Trump was doing to the Muslims in America, etc., in terms of their rights and stuff. Look at what the Australians are doing to Muslims in Australia, depriving them of the rights and demonizing them and stuff. So the West is using the Uyghur situation to clamp down and come down hard on China. That's all that's happening. And they just don't want them to progress anymore. Hence this Huawei, you know, and this 5G and all that stuff. Anyway,
Okay.
I think we need to wrap up.
Right. The one is regarding Palestine election, and there was I think we discussed about, you know, Israel, a new election, a new results, no overall winner, and in 3 years they have done about 4. Palestinian in 15 years they have done 1, and how viable the election of
very briefly,
Palestine.
We can discuss this. Yeah, we can discuss this next time in detail. But very briefly, what's happening in Israel is that there's a lot of issues happening. Number one, Israel is supposed to be a secular state, but the ultra orthodox, okay, who are exempt from military service, who are exempt from even working, okay. They don't. Their job is for the men is just study the Torah, okay. They don't like to take part in the military, which is essential. And the biggest problem of them all is that their numbers are growing massively. 6, 8, 9, 10 children is normal. For the atheist secular majority Jews, their numbers are 1 or 2 children, if that. They're like the rest of the secular world. So the demographics of Israel over the next 20, 30 years is going to change massively with the ultra Orthodox becoming much more represented within the country. And of course, they will change the laws of the country. And the result will be that the majority of the secular liberals, they'll say, you know what, we'd rather live in America or France or Britain. And they will end up leaving Israel as this ultra-Orthodox. And of course, the Orthodox, as far as I know, are totally anti-Zionist. So the whole of this Zionist dream is going to be turned upside down with the rise of the ultra-Orthodox.
And, you know, 75 years old Netanyahu with all kind of corruption against him, everything. Yeah. And now he has been actually like a dictator as well in there. He doesn't believe in the 2-state solution, which has been approved by Oslo negotiation internationally.
Two-state solution died 20 years ago.
And why even you know, the way he actually dealt with the pandemic as well wasn't the whole. There was a lot of protests as well by people against him as well. But again, he can, because he knows that if he gets out of the prime minister, he will be put in jail.
Look, I think Israeli politics is a mess, okay? And now you've got the Arab parties becoming more and more influential. 20% of Israel is Arab and Muslim, and therefore Now they are taking politics a bit more seriously. In the last elections, they won a seat in parliament. They won it again this time as well. So Netanyahu actually has to sit down with them. They could be, so he's going to have to sit down with people he doesn't like if he's going to form a government. That's the whole thing about, this democratic process in Israel, so-called democracy. So yeah, it's a mess.
No, I think one thing, but you say there's a lot of election. We have a local council election in Britain, and in Algeria there is a parliament election. There's a lot of election going in the pandemic conditions as well, which is not very, very. I think very, very. I think recommended to do this in emergency situation. You are conducting a lot of laws are passed, a lot of election are taking place as well. For one to stand as a member, we have 3 ways you can stand as a member of a party, 2 stand as an independent, or you don't participate like we have in Algeria last time. There was a presidential election, the lowest about 20% went to vote as well. There was a total boycotting of the election as well. Do you think that what is the best way in our time, to stand part of a member of a party who are as an opposition? They are not very, very credible as well, because they don't show any opposition whatsoever to the ruling regimes in those countries, or you become independent, therefore you don't have any party to belong to, or you don't just forget about it because you're not credible.
Look, as Muslims, it's always going to be very, very difficult for us to be part of any party. Because to be part of any party, like the Labour or Conservative, for example, you have to accept everything within the party. And there are things there that we will not be happy with, okay? And the result will be that, we will have to make a choice. Either we follow our deen or we follow what the party tells us to do in terms of beliefs. Otherwise, we will not be able to go up. The only way you're going to go up the ladder is if you are secular. And if you're not prepared to give up your to adopt secularism as your way of life, then maybe you might remain an MP for a short time or whatever. But the party will deselect you, quite simply. They will deselect you. They deselect you, then that's it, end of. So independent probably is the only way if you really want to take part in politics. But we should take a leaf out of what they did in Egypt, the Ikhwan.
Brotherhood.
Yeah, the Muslim Brotherhood. They were banned from taking part in politics. So they still took part, but they stood as independents. And everybody knew who they were, and they became like 20% of the parliament, even though the Muslim Brotherhood was banned. But they were representing the Muslim Brotherhood as independents. So they became.
And the last election, they had a party.
Yes, and then look what happened. You see, look what happened. So until you get, you're going to get over 50% of the seats, don't reveal yourself. And until you've got the army on your side, and the media, you've got enough media outlets to push out your message, and you've got enough of the business community also backing you, don't reveal yourself. That is what the lesson of Egypt is with the Muslim Brotherhood. Because
and as well the influence of America and
yeah. Don't reveal yourself. Don't reveal yourself. Otherwise, the Americans will not tolerate you. They'll use every means at their disposal. The Israelis will use every means at their disposal. Whoever doesn't like you, the West will never accept. For example, Hamas. They can win as democratically as they like, but the West will never accept them. It's as simple as that. So it's not about democracy. The West keeps banging on about democracy. It's not about democracy. It's about having the party that you want in power. and Hamas is because of their affiliation with Muslim Brotherhood as well. They are never going to be accepted by the West, or by the Saudis, or by the Emiratis, all these others who are fearful that the Muslim Brotherhood will infiltrate their countries and remove these dictatorships that exist. So
Right.
there are problems there.
Okay, I think thank you very much. I think we forgot about Egypt and the train accident in about maybe 1 minute. Can you speak about it?
Well, infrastructure is falling apart. And Egypt is a very poor country. And until they completely, change their infrastructure, put new railways in, new systems in, you're going to have these horrible accidents in which many people die. May Allah give them Jannah.
I mean, inshallah, I think we extend our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to the families of 32 people who have been martyred in this crash between two trains, and 152 injured, whom may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them quick recovery. Brother Asad Zaman was Jazakallah khair for your input. I hope everybody enjoyed this program. If you have any questions for Brother Zaman or any issues you want to discuss as well, you can always email us on admin@Radio Hajj Online, and of course you can www.radiohajjonline is a radio, but the TV as well. You go to the program, you can listen to many programs, from Quran to women program to children program to current affairs and to topical issues as well regarding racism and of it. And of course, the focus is Ramadan in Focus program. And of course, you can follow that on radiohajj.online. Thank you very much. وجزاكم الله خير. We say سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد واستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Just put it on stop.
Just end.
And no, stop. Yeah, we just stop. Otherwise, we'll save it.
Oh,
And let's have a look. Let me
go back.
You haven't stopped it yet?
I haven't. No.
You press record. The way it says record. Just touch that, and then it should say to you pause or stop.
Okay. I'm trying to do this.
If that doesn't work, then the three dots where it says more, it should say stop or pause. So just stop it.
I'm trying to go back. Where are this? Just 1 minute.
So at the bottom, you see, do you have more?
I'm trying to go to back, but I could not.
Just go to more.
I'm trying to get. All right, wait. Okay, this stop.
Yeah, just stop it.
I stopped the video now.
No,
more. So I go to more. Yeah.
Stop the recording.
No. Stop the more.
See, I can change the host and I can do it from here, but it might affect the recording. I don't know.
Oh, this is the button, isn't it? Yeah.
So where it says more.
Yes.
Press more, and then and recording it should say to you
pause or this square. Yeah.
Square. Press the square one. That's stopping it.
Okay. Okay. Stop recording. You receive an email, not even when Cloud recording is ready, yeah? Shall I put stop now, yeah?
Let's stop. That's it.
Okay.